Before this story pulls you in, take 1 second. Subscribe to our channel, share this story with your friends, and become part of a community that believes impossible victories are still possible. Now listen carefully, because this is not just a story. This is a warning to arrogance. The laugh came first. Loud, sharp, careless. It echoed across the private racetrack like money echoing in an empty room. The millionaire leaned against his flawless black supercar, arms folded, diamond watch catching the sun as if it, too, wanted attention. His name was Victor Hargreave, self-made, self-obsessed, and famously undefeated in everything he touched. Business, bets, people. To him, life was a race, and he had never once believed he could lose. Then his eyes dropped to the car in front of him. Rust crawled along its sides like disease. The paint had once been red, maybe proud, but now it was sunburnt and peeling. The hood was dented inward, the bumper held together with mismatched bolts, and one headlight flickered weakly like a tired eye refusing to close. Victor laughed again, harder this time. "That thing," he said, pointing, "that's junk, absolute scrap." The man standing beside the car didn't flinch. His name was Eli Carter. No fame, no fortune, just oil-stained hands, quiet eyes, and a posture shaped by years of carrying weight no one ever saw. He didn't smile. He didn't argue. He simply rested his palm on the roof of the broken car, as if it were alive. Victor smirked. "Tell you what," he said, loud enough for the small crowd of investors, influencers, and spectators he'd invited for entertainment. "Beat me. One race. You beat me with that junk car and I'll give you everything. Money, property, cars, my company, all of it." A ripple of laughter followed. Phones came up. This was content. This was humiliation packaged for the internet. Eli finally spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut clean through the noise. "Everything?" he asked. Victor nodded, amused. "Everything." The contract was written on the spot. Victor's lawyers smirked as they slid the papers across the hood of a spotless white table. Eli read every word, slowly, carefully, like a man who understood that moments like this didn't come twice. He signed. What no one there knew, what Victor couldn't possibly imagine, was that this wasn't a joke to Eli. This wasn't pride. This wasn't desperation. This was personal, because that junk car wasn't junk. It was history. Years ago, before Victor Hargreaves' name meant power, before his company swallowed competitors whole, he'd crushed a small family-owned auto shop with a hostile takeover. He'd shut it down, fired everyone, and bulldozed the building within a month. To him, it was efficiency. To Eli, it was everything. That shop had belonged to his father. The car now sitting on the track was the last thing they'd ever built together. Night after night, father and son had worked on it under flickering lights, hands black with grease, hearts full of belief. When the shop was destroyed, the car was all Eli managed to save, and he never stopped working on it. For 10 years, while Victor climbed, Eli learned. Engines, weight balance, torque curves, old techniques the world had forgotten. He rebuilt that car piece by piece, not to look pretty, but to survive, to adapt, to win. Victor climbed into his supercar with a grin. Carbon fiber body, custom engine, millions poured into perfection. He revved the engine, the sound sharp and aggressive, designed to intimidate. Eli slid into his driver's seat. The interior was simple, stripped down, no luxury, just function. He closed his eyes for half a second and breathed. "Dad," he whispered, "we're not losing today." The flag dropped. Victor shot forward instantly, his car exploding off the line with raw power. The crowd cheered as he surged ahead, leaving Eli behind in a cloud of dust. Cameras followed Victor, already framing the victory speech. "He's done." Someone laughed, but Eli wasn't racing Victor. He was racing the track. The first corner came fast. Victor hit it aggressively, trusting technology to save him. Eli approached differently. He eased off at just the right moment, letting momentum settle, tires gripping instead of screaming. The old car moved like it remembered something the new ones had forgotten. By the second lap, Victor was still ahead, but not by much. His smile faded. He pushed harder. Eli stayed calm. The third lap exposed the truth. Victor's car was built for speed in straight lines, dominance in perfect conditions. But this track had elevation changes, unpredictable turns, imperfections. Eli's car danced through them. Not fast, precise. By lap 5, Victor glanced in his mirror, and his stomach tightened. The junk car was there, close, too close. He floored it, anger replacing confidence. The engine screamed. The tires protested. On a sharp bend he cut too tight, clipped the edge and lost control for half a second. That was all Eli needed. He didn't blast past. He slipped by, clean, quiet, like water finding a crack. The crowd fell silent. Victor's hands tightened on the wheel. This wasn't possible. This wasn't happening. But it was. The final stretch approached. Victor pushed his car beyond its limits. Warning lights flashed. He ignored them. Pride demanded victory. Eli listened to his engine like a heartbeat. He knew exactly how far he could go, and no further. They crossed the finish line. The broken car crossed first. No cheers came at first, just disbelief. Victor stepped out slowly, face pale, mouth slightly open. His lawyers stared at the contract like it had just turned into a death sentence. Eli parked the car, climbed out, and stood there breathing hard, not from exhaustion but from release. Victor laughed once more, but this time it cracked. That was luck, he said weakly. Eli met his eyes. No, he said, that was work. And as Victor looked at the car again, really looked, he realized something terrifying. He hadn't lost to a machine. He'd lost to a man who never stopped building while he was too busy laughing. The crowd slowly erupted. Phones shook. The internet would explode. But the real explosion was yet to come, because Victor Hargreave had promised everything, and the next chapter would show what it truly costs when arrogance signs its own defeat. Before the story continues, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share this story with someone who believes hard work always finds its moment. What happens next is where everything truly changes. The silence after the finish line was heavier than the roar that came before it. It pressed against Victor Hargreave's chest like a weight he'd never trained to carry. For the first time in his life, the world didn't bend when he expected it to. It simply stared back. Cameras were still rolling, phones were still raised, but the laughter was gone. Victor stood frozen beside his supercar, the engine ticking as it cooled, each sound mocking him. He looked again at the contract lying on the white table, fluttering slightly in the breeze. His signature stared up at him, confident, careless, final. "Shut it down," he snapped at one of his assistants. Now. But it was too late. The footage was already everywhere. The billionaire humbled, the junk car victorious, the impossible made real. Eli remained near his car, running a hand along the dented hood. The metal was warm, alive, like it had just exhaled after holding its breath for 10 long years. He didn't celebrate. He didn't raise his arms. Victory wasn't a performance to him. It was a promise kept. Victor approached, his stride stiff, pride bruised and bleeding. Up close, Eli could see it. The fear behind the billionaire's eyes. Not fear of loss, but fear of exposure. Fear that the world might finally see him as something other than untouchable. "You planned this," Victor said quietly, teeth clenched. Eli met his gaze. "I prepared for it." "There's a difference," Victor shot back. "This wasn't fair." Eli's voice stayed steady. "You chose the race. You chose the stakes. You chose to laugh." The lawyers arrived next, moving fast, whispering urgently into Victor's ear. Eli could hear fragments, public contract, witnesses, no legal exit. Victor's jaw tightened with every word. "This ends here," Victor finally said, turning back to Eli. "You want money? Fine, I'll pay you. Generously, more than you could ever imagine. We tear up the contract, shake hands, and walk away." Eli looked past him, at the crowd, at the track, at the sky above the place where his father's shop once stood. He thought of eviction notices, of nights sleeping in the car, of learning to fix what others threw away. "I didn't race for money," Eli said. Victor scoffed. "Everyone races for money." Eli shook his head. "No. Some of us race for closure." The words landed harder than any punch. Victor's expression darkened. "You think you've won some moral battle?" he said. "You think owning my company will make you happy?" Eli stepped closer. "No, but it will make things right." The transfer began within hours. Under legal pressure and public scrutiny, Victor had no room to maneuver. Assets were frozen. Boards convened emergency meetings. Stock prices trembled. Headlines screamed. The billionaire who once controlled everything now sat alone in a glass conference room, watching his empire slide across a table to a man in oil-stained boots. Eli signed the documents slowly, deliberately. Each page felt like a chapter closing, not just for Victor, but for his own past. Victor finally broke. "You don't even know how to run a corporation," he spat. "You'll destroy it." Eli didn't look up. "Then maybe it deserves to be rebuilt." Within days, Eli Carter became the most unlikely owner of one of the largest automotive conglomerates in the country. Analysts laughed. Critics predicted collapse. Sock. Media buzzed with disbelief. The junk car sat parked in the company's underground garage, untouched. Eli didn't rush into the spotlight. He walked the factory floors instead. He listened. He asked questions no CEO had asked in decades. Names, stories, problems. Workers noticed immediately. Machines that had been flagged as unsafe for years were finally shut down. Departments that had been cut to boost profits were reinstated. People who had been invisible suddenly mattered. Victor watched it all from the outside, his access revoked, his influence evaporating. For the first time, he was the one standing behind glass. Late one night, Eli returned to the garage. He opened the hood of the car and stared at the engine, thinking of his father's hands guiding his own. "They don't get it yet," he murmured. "But they will." The next board meeting shocked the world. Eli announced a complete restructuring. Fair wages, ethical sourcing, investment in training instead of layoffs. Profits dipped instantly. The media pounced. "He's ruining it," they said. "This won't last." Victor smiled when he heard the news. Failure, he believed, was inevitable. But something strange happened. Product quality soared. Customer trust returned. Workers stayed late, not because they were forced, but because they cared. And the junk car? Eli had it restored, not polished, not perfected, just preserved. It was placed in the company's lobby, dents and all, with a simple plaque, "Built, not boo." People stopped and stared. Victor came one day unannounced. Security hesitated, then allowed him in. He stood in front of the car for a long time, hands in his pockets, shoulders slumped. "You really kept it," he said when Eli joined him. "Yes." Victor swallowed. "You could have crushed me," he said. "You could have taken everything and disappeared." Eli looked at him. "I didn't want to disappear. I wanted to change the rules." Victor laughed softly, bitterly. "I laughed at you first." Eli nodded. "I know." The silence between them wasn't hostile anymore. It was heavy with lessons. Victor finally asked, "Why didn't you take revenge?" Eli rested his hand on the car. "Because revenge ends the story. Purpose continues it." Victor had no reply. Outside, the world kept spinning. Views climbed, stories spread, people found hope in a man who proved that preparation beats privilege, that patience outlasts arrogance. But this wasn't the end, because Victor Hargreave, a man who had lost everything, was about to face the one race no money could ever win, the race against himself. And Eli Carter was about to make the most dangerous decision of all. Before the final chapter unfolds, take a moment, subscribe to our channel, and share this story with your friends. Stories like this deserve to travel far, because this ending isn't about winning a race. It's about winning a life. Victor Hargreave had lost many things in a single day: his empire, his reputation, his certainty. But the one thing he hadn't lost was his reflection. Every morning it stared back at him from the mirror of a modest apartment he barely knew how to live in. No assistants, no chauffeurs, no calls begging for his approval. Just silence, thick and unforgiving. For the first time there was nowhere to run. He replayed the race endlessly in his mind, the laugh, the contract, the moment the junk car slid past him like a quiet truth he'd spent a lifetime ignoring. It wasn't the loss that haunted him. It was the ease with which he'd dismissed another human being. Meanwhile, Eli Carter was carrying a weight he never expected. Power is heavier than it looks. Owning the company hadn't magically healed old wounds. If anything, it exposed new ones. Every decision affected thousands of lives. Every mistake echoed loudly. Some nights Eli stayed in his office long after the lights went out, staring at spreadsheets and reports, wondering if he was strong enough to carry what he'd won. The junk car still sat in the lobby, unchanged. Employees often paused beside it, running their fingers along the dents, as if touching proof that broken things could still move forward. One evening, Eli found a letter on his desk, no return address. Just a few lines, handwritten, "I don't know who I am without winning. Victor." Eli folded the letter carefully. He didn't respond immediately. Weeks passed. The company stabilized. Profits slowly returned, not through exploitation, but through loyalty. Eli refused interviews. He let the work speak. And quietly, he started something no one saw coming. A foundation. It rebuilt what had been erased. Small shops, independent mechanics, family businesses crushed by corporate greed. Grants, training, second chances. The name of the foundation was simple: Carter and Son. The day Victor heard about it, something inside him broke open. He went to the foundation's office unannounced, standing awkwardly at the door like a man unsure if he was allowed to exist there. Eli looked up from his desk and saw him. Not the billionaire, not the villain, just a man stripped bare. "I don't want anything," Victor said quickly. "I just needed to see it." Eli nodded. "Then see it." They walked through the workshop together, young mechanics learning from old ones, tools passed hand to hand, laughter echoing off concrete walls. Victor swallowed hard. "This is what I destroyed," he whispered. "Yes," Eli said, "and this is what you can help rebuild." Victor turned, startled. "You'd let me?" Eli's eyes were steady. "Not as an owner, not as a king, as a worker." The silence stretched. Victor laughed softly, no arrogance left in it. "I don't even know how." "Then you'll learn," Eli replied. That was the beginning of the hardest race Victor Hargreave had ever run. No finish line, no applause, just humility. He showed up every day, cleaned floors, carried parts, listened instead of commanded. Some people recognized him, most didn't care, and for the first time that was okay. Months later, on the anniversary of the race, Eli stood alone on the same track. The junk car idled beside him, engine steady, patient. Victor joined him, wearing grease-stained gloves. "Do you ever regret it?" Victor asked. "Taking everything from me?" Eli shook his head. "I didn't take everything. I took what you didn't value." Victor nodded slowly. "And you gave me something I never had." "What's that?" Eli asked. "A chance to be human." They watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the track gold. The place where laughter once mocked now held silence filled with respect. Eli opened the car door and looked inside, smiling faintly. "You know," he said, "this car was never junk." Victor smiled too. "Neither was I. I just didn't know how to drive yet." The engine revved once, strong, alive, not for a race, for the road ahead, and somewhere, beyond money, beyond pride, beyond victory, a father's lesson echoed softly: "Build something worth finishing." The end,